The Chernobyl NPP accident became one of the main disasters of all times. It did a lot of harm to the ecology and affected many animals. What animals can we meet now in Chernobyl? How many mutants are there in reality? What strange creatures were found in this place by the scientists and ordinary people? You'll learn that and much more in this episode. Some time ago, a shot made its way to the internet, caught not far away from the exploded reactor. The author states that he came across the body of a dead creature, which had grown up to abnormal sizes and mutated. It was supposedly a millipede under the influence of radiation, as well as infected local soil. It's not known if this is true or not. I just share the information with you, as it seems to me these creatures may well inhabit the infected area. It's no big deal. For example, several years ago, it became clear that the Chernobyl NPP accident changed the way some quite habitual to us animals look like, including the big-hoofed animals. These shots show an animal running along the exclusion zone in the region of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, NPP. Have you already noticed how strange it is? The animal had something wrong with its head. It either lacks at all, or because of mutation, the animal is short of neck and its head grows right from its body. By the way, it's not quite clear who it is, either a moose or a deer. There's a consensus of opinion that it's a moose. Some may think this beast is unreal. Agnostics can oppose that a creature isn't able to live without a head, but I would argue about that. After all, history knows a lot of animals capable of surviving without a head, from hens and snakes to flies and cockroaches. If that moose was subject to mutations, as well as its parents and more remote ancestors from the same population, it's quite possible that it learned how to do so without a head. As a possible version, its important organs were displaced to its body. The same can be said for its neck. In other words, its lack. If its head is in place with the lack of a neck, the animal could have adapted itself to this abnormality. After all, it's known that nature is good at adapting to even negative changes. There are also other versions. According to one of them, it was a hybrid between a deer and a rabbit, or between a horse and a cow that was caught on camera. A second version says that it was an unusual deer or moose, but without a trauma or undeveloped neck. In the case with Chernobyl, anything can happen. Superworm. What can we expect to take place in the eye of the storm if there are strange creatures even running around the streets of Chernobyl and Pripyat? What creatures can we encounter within the precincts of the plant? Now the plant is inspected on a regular basis. The works on the NPP's decommissioning and transformation of the fourth energy block destroyed in the result of the accident into an ecologically safe system. But in the initial years, everything was completely different. This shot I found on the internet was supposedly made in the 1990s. Scientists found such a strange, dreadful, and huge creature in the reactor. It's not known who it is. Anyway, one of the versions says that it was a mutant worm. It grew inside the buildings as if it were some cancerous tumor, taking up more and more space. All that remains is to hope that it was eliminated somehow and sealed forever in the closed space. There's no exact information concerning this megaworm. On the other hand, you don't have to doubt that Chernobyl mutant catfish exist. They inhabit a cooling pound of the Chernobyl NPP. Before the disaster, the locals frequently went fishing and caught fish from the Pripyat and other water bodies. However, this practice came to an end after the disaster. At the same time, not forever and not completely, we know that it's possible to come to Chernobyl. Some brave guys take their gears and come here for only one reason: to catch the legendary catfish. You have to say that they risk a lot. These fish can often reach huge sizes and even exceed human stature and length. What's the reason for? Why are they so long? Maybe it's about the radiation? Actually, no. Though initially it was supposed to be the case, scientists found out later that catfish possess an adaptive mechanism to extreme environmental conditions. This is what helps them survive. Catfish are provided with a protective function, DNA recovery. This way, those water giants are not mutants. This is how they're called just habitually. But yet, why are they so long? It's considered their diet is essential. Because of radiation, a predatory fish disappeared, which provided them with a bigger amount of food. In addition, they started to eat water and small birds. Intensified diet led to increases in size. By the way, the number of fishermen decreased. They catch less of their prey and catfish themselves. Finally, many tourists tried to feed these fish when they come here. As a result, already big catfish grew in size. They say these catfish can become even bigger in several decades. It's also said that they're so dangerous that they're able to plunge a fisherman into water and eat it. But these are thin stories, though maybe I'm mistaken. Mutant catfish may be the most famous animals in Chernobyl and Pripyat, but there are much less people knowing about the facts that new mutants have appeared recently. I say about frogs. How do you think their mutation is expressed? Maybe they developed new limbs? Or they became a dozen times bigger than their healthy brethren? Or did they turn to the most dangerous predators in the region? In fact, everything is not so dreadful and much simpler. It's all about their coloration. The Finnish scientists found out that because of the disaster, the frogs that used to be bright green changed their color to a very dark one. They found specimens that were almost completely black. According to their words, the frogs changed their color because of melanin pigment. The new coloration became a necessary measure of survival. The pigment lessened damaged DNA at the expense of radiation dispersion. Earlier, scientists had noticed the same effect in local mushrooms. Possibly in the future, they'll also find other atypical and strangely colored animals in this area. Radioactive fish. Those are not only the modern scientists who explore the local fauna in Chernobyl and its neighborhoods. They started to do that almost at once after the disaster. In the desolate and left buildings of Chernobyl, we may come across something creepy. In these shots, for example, we can see a group of tourists entering an old house. It looks chaotic, there's nothing interesting, but on the window stool there are glass jars with fish. Or those are not only fish. In fact, it's difficult to define what it really is. Personally, it seems to me that those were mutant fish in some jars, as if they developed limbs that shouldn't have been there. Possibly those were amphibians from the water bodies contaminated by radiation. Anyway, let it all stay in that place, sealed in jars. Who knows what these mutants are capable of, even so that they're already breathless. Everything is still ambiguous with those fish. Maybe it just seemed to me that they're mutants, and what I tell you is not true. But what do you think of this? Several years ago, a clip made its way to the web with this dreadful and strange creature. The video author said it's a piglet. The animal was exposed to radioactive mutation, because of which it's much different from the ordinary healthy piglets. The mutant even has a human face. On its deformed face, we can see a well-expressed nose, chin, and eyes, also resembling that of a human. The video author said that he came across that piglet in the neighborhoods of Chernobyl in a sewage. It's known that the Chernobyl sewage is still heavily contaminated by radiation, so that's not surprising. It's exactly there where this mutant came to being. But it's interesting who gave birth to it. Creepy mutant pig or an ordinary pig? And basically, who else can we find in these Chernobyl sewages? Seems to me real monsters dwell there. For example, such as those. Alright, in fact, this is another mutant piglet. Truly speaking, in this case, it was found not in the sewage. The cub came into the world on a farm shortly after the disaster on the plant. Back then, there were many similar mutants. It was not a rare occasion that creatures with twisted and deformed limbs, defected organs, and other features of this kind came to being. After all these stories and shots, it may seem that Chernobyl is inhabited by exclusively dreadful mutants that can attack a man, infect him, or at least impress him with their sizes and unusual appearance. In fact, it's not the case. Here you can find other animals as well. For example, butterflies. Not ordinary, but giant butterflies. It's exactly a giant butterfly they came across in Chernobyl several years ago, the blue underwing. Basically, this species butterflies are rather big in principle. Their wingspan can reach up to 3 to 3.5 inches. But the one found in Chernobyl had it at about 4 inches, which is comparable to the size of a small bird. Scientists consider that this insect experienced a slight mutation, which led to its increase in size. This surprised scientists. The fact of its presence in the contaminated region was astounding by itself. This butterfly species had never been found there. Maybe that has some meaning. For example, despite the fact that the Chernobyl area is contaminated, nature is becoming cleaner from the presence of many people. So more and more new animal species will be coming there in the future. Butterflies are a good thing, of course, but you must admit that we associate Chernobyl not with these fine insects, but with something terrible. Something like this, for example. This video author states that he came across a real Chernobyl monster nobody had known about. It was standing by some house and looking around as if stalking its victims. It's not fully clear what a creature that was, some Chernobyl ghost, radioactive mutant, or an animal transformed because of the monstrous radiation dosage. Anyway, the most important thing is that the monster didn't notice the operator and didn't attack him. Speaking of monsters, it's considered that the contaminated region is inhabited by several creatures, inexplicable even by scientists. The Chernobyl demon is one of them. It's also called the Chernobyl black bird. This demon is very reserved, but they still managed to catch it on camera a couple of times. Interestingly, this creature isn't considered radioactive or a mutant. Judging by everything, it had inhabited the Chernobyl MPP even before the disaster. And what's more, many believe exactly this demon was the one to predict the disaster. One of the scientists working on Chernobyl MPP told that days prior to the tragedy, he had seen a huge dark bird with big wings and fiery red eyes. Other scientists remembered about that later, as well as the locals. Was it a coincidence that literally a couple days after the black bird's visit, the accident took place? It's not the end of it. After the disaster, when people started to liquidate the consequences of the accident, they saw a huge 20-foot bird soaring not far from the destroyed reactor. Not many saw and remembered that. People were very concentrated on hard and important work. The bird's been making its presence felt even afterwards. It sometimes comes up in the sky over tourists coming to Chernobyl. In spite of that, it's almost impossible to catch the bird on camera. It's imperceptible and seems to feel when they want to capture footage. This is exactly why scientists haven't still managed to explain who it is. The Chernobyl black bird is a real riddle. Still unclear what it is. Either it was an unknown monster or just the very ordinary huge bird many take for the local demon involved in all the troubles. As far as I'm concerned, anything is possible. We come back to the animals we all know. For example, dogs. All the dogs you can meet in Chernobyl and Pripyat are wild. These are ancestors of pets left by their owners after the accident and evacuation. Everything's clear. You may have known about that, but are you aware that there are many mutant dogs in Chernobyl? This has been even officially confirmed by scientists. What can you expect from them? What do they look like? Do they attack indiscriminately? In fact, no. Mutations are not always about changes in appearance, but also about inner changes and transformations. The International Collective of Genetics researched the genomes of more than 300 stray dogs within the precincts of the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone and found out that their DNA structure does not look like the gen structure of other dog breeds. It's exactly why you can consider them mutants, and even unusual ones. Interestingly, the genome structure differs considerably among various dog groups. Those living closer to the plant have different genome than those living more remotely. It's also interesting how these dogs actually survived. More than 35 years have passed, and despite that, the population was preserved. The animals learned how to successfully survive and find food in this region. Food is only half the trouble. How did they manage to reproduce themselves? After all, scientists came to the conclusion that all dogs cross within the same population. In other words, inbreeding takes place. Despite that, puppies are born quite healthy and don't look like one another. It's a real mystery for scientists. They have just a supposition. They think that parents giving birth to puppies are and were exposed to a different degree of radiation. Actually, there are many healthy animals in Chernobyl and Pripyat. It sounds likely to be an exaggeration, more of a myth. Yes, you can really encounter mutants there, animals contaminated by radiation, as well as strange and inexplicable creatures. Anyway, you'll find much more ordinary animals. Animals manage to adapt to local conditions and find food. There are also many animals feeling that the area is becoming cleaner in the course of time. That's why they come to that place more frequently. We saw that at the example of the giant butterfly. With the help of trap cameras and unmediated research, scientists found out that many different animals inhabit Chernobyl and Pripyat, starting from wolves, raccoons, horses, and deer to bison and even bears. They feel well and, judging by everything, will feel even better later on. Without active people's participation in their life and without the presence of many people in their habitat, they feel more comfortable with each year. And now we get on from the Chernobyl mutant dogs to those banned in the whole world. Tosa Inu. At a glance, it's clear that the Tosa Inu is a serious dog. No cute facial expressions, no flabbiness, just big size, steel muscles, and aggression. These Japanese Mastiffs were originally bred for dogfighting, and this is already a good argument to ban the predator in many countries. Speaking of it, the Tosa Inu is banned in at least 17 countries around the world. But at the same time, it's extremely rare. Even in Japan, it's not so easy to find the real Tosa Inu. Therefore, to some extent, we can say that this dog is banned literally all over the world. Some states recognize the breed as illegal, and where Tosa Inu is still allowed, problems can still arise. For example, some insurance companies will not provide you with insurance if you're the owner of such a dangerous dog as the Tosa Inu. These dogs can weigh up to 200 pounds and are characterized by incredible jaw strength. The Japanese Mastiffs easily bite even hard objects in half. These dogs are so dangerous that many professional dog breeders and cynologists are afraid to breed them. Having Tosa Inu as the first pet is a death sentence at all. An inexperienced owner can mess up the training and turn the Tosa Inu into a horrible monster that'll be more terrible than even the wolf. Pitbull. It's still not entirely clear how the American Pit Bull Terrier breed was bred and for what purpose, but one version says that these dogs were created for bull baiting, hence the name of the breed. According to another version, pit bulls were bred for dog fighting and rat hunting. Either way, breeders have created real monsters that are now banned in many countries around the world. Even in its homeland, the US, the pit bull is banned in one way or another in some states. And this isn't surprising, considering that in the US, pit bulls are responsible for 66% of all human deaths from dog bites in general. In other words, it's America's most dangerous dog. Pit bull has a low boiling point and can attack anyone. For example, a dog that doesn't pose a threat to it, a house cat, a large wild cat, an ordinary human, and even the police and military. The latter often have to use firearms because otherwise you can't cope with an enraged pit bull. It has monstrous bite force, and aggression literally takes over it. Once they've gotten a taste for a fight, pit bulls can no longer hear their owner's commands and tear up their prey like a shark. Even with careful training, a pit bull is not 100% safe. These predators can go crazy at any time. However, some dogs do not mind fighting with pit bulls themselves. For example, the fearless Dogo Argentinos. They really can get into a fight with a pit bull, a Rottweiler, and any other dangerous dog because they themselves are extremely dangerous. This is evidenced by the fact that in many European countries, the breeding and keeping of the Dogo Argentino is strictly forbidden. These dogs were bred as large animal hunters, so it's not surprising that genetically they're real killers. They can even deal with many large wild animals, cougars for example. The dog is able to chase an animal at high speed for a long time and then fight with it. These Argentines have a lot of stamina due to the fact that most of the representatives of this breed living in cities do not have the opportunity to realize themselves as hunters. More and more Dogo Argentinos are used in various canine disciplines. As for cynologists, they say that as a fighting dog, the Dogo Argentino shows itself even better than pit bulls and Tosa Inu. Presa Canario. Next up is another forbidden dog. It can be bred in some countries of the world, but in certain parts of the world, the Presa Canario is strictly not welcome. For example, there's no such dogs in Australia and New Zealand because these Spanish dogs are considered one of the most dangerous on the planet. What's interesting is that unlike the previous dogs in this episode, the Presa Canario was originally bred to work with livestock. However, later their functionality has expanded and these Spaniards have already been used as fighting dogs. The ancestors of the Presa Canario were crossed with Mastiffs and English bulldogs, which were used for bull and bear baiting, so it's not surprising that the Presa Canario is so powerful and aggressive. It got to the point where at one point these dogs were banned even in their native Spain, but the ban was lifted when canine scientists made the breed a little safer by enriching it with the genes from other dogs. Still, the Presa Canario has not become completely harmless. Earlier this century, these dogs killed at least 2 people, one of whom was the dog's owner. The Presa Canario needs training and early socialization. Otherwise, it will become an uncontrollable monster. Fila Brasileiro. Next up is a large breed. The Fila Brasileiro can grow up to 30 inches in height and weigh at least 90 to 110 pounds. Even if such a large dog were not aggressive, it would still be worth staying away from. The Fila Brasileiro is a dog with a hot temperament. It does not hide its distrust of strangers, and even at shows, aggression towards the judges is not a reason for disqualification. For this reason, the Fila Brasileiro is considered the ideal guard for the country house. It'll scare any intruder, and if they intrude, the dog will immediately catch up with them, catch them, and crush them with its powerful paws and jaws. The same applies to animals. The Fila Brasileiro deals shortly with them. For this reason, this Brazilian guardian is banned for breeding in many countries. And in certain countries, it's possible to own the Fila Brasileiro only if there is a court decision or special documents. Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Many people know about American Staffordshire Terriers, also known as Amstaffs. It's known that these dogs are very powerful and dangerous. Many generally consider them the most vicious and dangerous dogs on the planet, but common Staffordshire Bull Terriers from the UK can be just as dangerous. On the one hand, they were previously used for rat baiting, and at times, Staffordshire Bull Terriers show aggression that comes from their genes. On the other hand, with proper training, these dogs become great companions and real family members which can be forever devoted to their owners. others. And yet, this dog is not very safe for children, can be very aggressive towards its congeners and other animals, and has an impressive power, so many countries have banned it. And in some countries, it's officially recognized as a dangerous breed. While there are enough extremely dangerous dog breeds in the world, those that are banned in many countries of the world are rather an exception to the rule and a rarity. Speaking of rarity, why not take a look at some of the rarest dogs on the planet? Keep watching to see critically endangered dogs, amazing Hungarian dogs, and dogs of which there are only a few hundred left. Otterhound. While most of the previous animals in this episode were trained for dog fighting, various animals baiting, and so on, the British Otterhounds were originally intended for catching otters, hence the name of the breed. These British dogs were perfectly capable of doing their job, but that all changed in 1978 when England passed the law banning otter hunting. Otterhounds turned out to be of no use to anyone, and their population began to decline rapidly. As a result, there are already only about 600 dogs of this breed left in the world. The breed is considered endangered, and to encounter an otterhound is a rarity and luck. Legato Romagnolo. It's a rare breed from Italy. By the way, it's considered very ancient. It's descended from a dog that lived 10,000 years ago, and it was bred in the 16th century AD. They're peaceful and sociable dogs, characterized by a cute appearance. No wonder they're shown at exhibitions and shows. Their Legato Romagnolo regularly wins the hearts of spectators and judges. And yet, it's not so often you can encounter a Legato Romagnolo at such shows. After all, the breed is not numerous, and to find a purebred Legato Romagnolo is not an easy task at all. Moody. Next up is another ancient dog, the prototype of this Hungarian breed developed back in the Middle Ages. After World War II, the breed almost disappeared, and then it was restored anew. At all times, the Moody has been valued for its many qualities. Moodies are hardy and robust dogs with lots of energy. They're easy to train, obedient, manageable, require little or no washing or brushing, and are easy to keep. In addition, Moodies are also excellent guards, companion dogs, and animals that can even be used in rescue services. In general, the dog is just perfect. The only pity is that there are very few Moodies outside of their native Hungary, which makes them one of the rarest dogs in the world. Norwegian Lundehund. Still remember the British Otterhounds that hunted otters? The final animals in this episode have a similar fate. Long ago, they helped Vikings in all sorts of things, including catching Atlantic puffins on steep cliffs. Vikings were no longer there, but the Norwegian Lundehunds continued to catch these birds and help people. But as time went on, people began to catch Atlantic puffins themselves. At some point, this led to the fact that the Norwegian Lundehunds became completely unnecessary. This caused enormous damage to their population. Currently, there are only about 1,400 dogs of this breed in the world, and the breed itself is in a critical situation and may soon disappear forever. Predatory animals often overestimate their strength. Here's what it leads to. Lion and cheetah. Unlike the lion, cheetahs are not often talked about, but this is also a very dangerous cat and a beautiful predator, which, in addition, develops incredible speed. After all, it's the fastest land animal on the planet. Can it deal with a lion? As the author of this video said, the cheetah snuck into the lion territory. Apparently it wanted to hunt its larger relatives or simply claim new land, but it clearly overestimated its strength. While the cheetah was distracted and lay down to rest, the lions have already started hunting it. At once, 2 lions ran at the cheetah. The cat immediately jumped up and rushed away. Lions run much slower than cheetahs, so it's not a problem for the fast cat to run away. But not this time. The huge lion overtook the cheetah and immediately began to brutally kill the intruder. Soon it was joined by its congener. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the spotted cat was doomed. Antelope against all. Antelopes are the most unlucky creatures in all of Africa, simply because they're hunted by literally everyone. In this footage, we see an antelope. Its task is very difficult. The African wild dogs have chased it into the water and now prevent it from getting to the shore and escaping. It's not easy to resist 2 dogs at once. The antelope has to back up, but the problem is there's a hippo in the water. It's not a predator, but it's a very territorial animal. The giant can't stand intruders in its favorite pond, so it tries to attack the antelope, but the herbivore repulses the fatal attack at the last moment and the giant gets away. The battle continues. Meanwhile, there are more and more dogs here. Their congeners pull up on the shore, but the antelope doesn't give up and continues to repel the attacks, periodically backing into the pond. At one point, it half hides in it, and this is dangerous. Still important for it to not forget about the hippo behind it. But the clever antelope has done everything great. It repelled all the attacks and didn't let the opponents to hurt it. One could congratulate it on the victory, but unfortunately, the antelope still became a prey. All this time, there was a crocodile in the water, which waited for the perfect moment and easily captured the exhausted animal, taking the entire dainty for itself. Pity that it happened, but that doesn't mean it happens all the time. The following footage is a good example. Here we see the antelope in the water again. The animal's chilling and resting, but suddenly begins to twitch. This time the crocodile didn't wait too long. The reptile attacked right out of the water and clung to the antelope tightly. You can see how difficult it is. The antelope moves at a speed of several inches per second, or even per minute. Just about a minute later, the antelope gets close to the shore, and we see the crocodile. As you can see, it sank its teeth into the antelope's belly. It's hard to imagine how much pain the antelope was in, because it had to drag such a body with it. But the reptile had messed with the wrong opponent. The antelope managed to overcome the crocodile and throw it off, and then it came ashore and moved away to a safe distance. Honey badger and leopards. Here we see an unfair fight. 3 leopards at once made an attempt on the honey badger. They gnaw the poor creature alive. The fight's unfair only as we see it. For the honey badger, multiple opponents mean only one thing: it can attack in any direction. At first, the leopards were winning, but then the honey badger started biting one of the cats. The other 2 are shocked and can't believe their eyes this is really happening. Once the first cat had enough, it's the second cat's turn. The honey badger lunges at the other leopard, and the latter is clearly frightened by this onslaught. The conjurer tries to help it, but the honey badger bites it again. The third predator, that has not acted much so far, also got it. Then the honey badger begins to chase all the leopards one by one. One of them manages to bite it, but the beast again breaks free, attacks, and runs away. Honey badgers are really impenetrable. This is due to their very thick skin, which is almost impossible to bite through, and to their aggressive disposition and pressure. In spite of its modest size, the honey badger can fight back several leopards or lions without much effort. I think this is the real king of the jungle. For me, the previous flight ended too shamefully for the leopards, so I suggest rehabilitating these spotted cats. This time the leopard can breathe a sigh of relief. It's opposed not by a honey badger, but by a monkey. But the monkey's not that simple. This cunning primate climbed up a tree from the leopard. The leopard jumped after it. Then the monkey abruptly jumped down and climbed back. But you can't fool the leopard. It climbs after the monkey and catches it at the very top of the tree, doing an epic backflip. The landing on the branches was tough, but the incredible stunt was worth it. The prey is caught perfectly. 10 points out of 10. Do you still remember the hippos, which are also territorial? Well, elephants are not inferior to them in terms of territoriality. They too chase away any outsiders from their land, including hippos. In this footage, the hippo decided to encroach on the elephant's territory, but quickly realized it was a bad idea. The elephant ran at the hippo, started trumpeting, and then pushing the hippo. The elephant was pushing the hippo so assertively that at moments you forget that it's chasing away a very large and dangerous animal, not some harmless creature. The hippo had nothing to answer with. Eventually, it got out of the muddy pond and wandered away. That's all, guys. Which battle did you enjoy the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.